much coding. There will be a, when we are using SailPoint Identity IKF, we are going to be a developer and automating the provisioning to a lot of people. So it may need some coding, and that will have manual scripts. You just have to run those scripts by changing few modifications on it. And apart from that, and everything would just look theoretical, and it's just about you have to understand the different components that is being used by Okta and SailPoint. So, for Sandeep, what I would suggest is, so as you have experience on this before, and this is the backbone of IT now. So now, whatever the cybersecurity breach you take, one or the other way, so IAM is involved. The attackers may try to persist, or they try to do lateral movement, or they try to do privileged escalation, or a serious cybersecurity breach would be involving compromising IAM too. Okay, this is the reason so why IAM is getting a lot of popularity across the organizations. And if you see now, there's a lot of opportunities on Okta, SailPoint, not just these IAMs. Even if you just learn Microsoft Entra ID, which would be very easy to learn, you also have opportunities there. So instead of moving from, okay, you can I also I can also suggest you to learn maybe security operations or maybe cloud security. But as you are familiar with this already, so instead of learning a very new topic, so this would have you a lot of benefit in your career. So as you may also know, the opportunities that we have in SailPoint and Okta especially, cities, we have a huge market now. So and that is the reason we've started this course, so that it might help people like you, so to move your career, or to extend your career to the next ladder. That means so trust me, this is one of the very high paying jobs too, and one of the very backbone of IT is IAM. So if you could learn, I would also prefer you to learn security operations instead. If you have experience on this, so I would prefer you to stay on this, try your opportunities, and then try to see what fits for you, Sandeep.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Manu. Thank you very
Mm,
much.
sure. Any more questions?
Yeah, no.
Manoj, this is Naveen. I have a few questions.
Hello, Naveen. Good morning.
Good morning. Manoj, I currently coming with, I have experience with SOC. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
almost 4+ years. So just want to understand when in this course, do we learn with respect to a real-time perspective rather than a theoretical perspective? So, like,
I,
for example, go ahead, please. You say something.
yeah, go ahead, Naveen. I'll answer once your
For
question
example,
is done.
yeah, for example, like an integration of SailPoint and Okta in, enterprise identity systems.
Mm-hmm.
How do we handle the provisioning focus, all this? Because I was aware that we need to know AD for this. So a
Mm-hmm.
person without having, I mean, zero knowledge on AD also can just learn this course. So how that exactly works? I just want to have a clear view of this.
Oh, nice. Nice that you've asked this question, and it would also be useful for the other candidates here. See, we are going to do a greenfield implementation. So, what do I mean by that is we are going to deploy each and everything that is needed to learn Octane SailPoint. So I'll be setting up the lab, so you get to download your virtual machines, and there's a lot many things to be installed. So I'll be guiding you the installation, and I'm not saying that this will be completely hands-on training. So obviously there will be some theory that we have to discuss before we try to do anything within our lab. So simultaneously, whatever that is needed for you to know theoretically to implement your lab, so we'll be doing both of this simultaneously. So to answer your question in one line, so we will also be having a real-time hands-on experience provisioning. So we'll be developing, having and implementing SSOs. We'll be doing all the stuff that is related to both IAM and Okta. Sorry, both IAM within IAM, Okta and SailPoint. We can look into a real-time hands-on experience. Now,
Okay, last question. So do we also use any kind of compliance frameworks like, HIPAA or SOC which can be implemented using the SailPoint Okta, or that's out of the course.
Okay, so that is not completely out of the course. Obviously, IAM is involved with the governance and compliance too. So we may not implement a specific regulation into our IAM, but whatever the policies and the controls that we keep in place. So this would also be there with the cybersecurity regulations. So if we wanted to relate this, we can try to relate it, but we are not individually gonna learn about implementing any of the cybersecurity frameworks. We'll be more concentrating on implementing our access controls and management.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Sure, then, so any more questions from anyone before we could start a demo session today? Okay.
So, so like with Okta, is it just
Mhm.
we are implementing SSO or like are we going to implement MFA as well?
We are going to implement both of it, SSO and MFA, and we're also going to learn about the different protocols involved to implement both of it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay then. So thanks for asking questions. So that I just wanna make sure that you guys are not having any confusion before we could start the course. Okay. So as this is a quick demo session, so the objective of today's session is very simple. So is to understand how to establish a very firm understanding of the very fundamentals of IAM. Now, when I say the fundamentals, obviously you should know what is IAM and why should we implement IAM, right? So let's talk about those fundamentals. And along with that, so it's very important for us to understand what are we going to learn from this course. So as we've already provided you the course curriculum, I would also like to go and take you ahead about the course curriculum and make you understand what are all the topics and things that we are going to cover within this specific course. So let's get ahead first and try to understand the core fundamentals, and later we can see the curriculum. Guys, please mute yourself.
The screen, not visible the screen.
No, no, I'll be sharing the screen. You don't worry, please. Okay. And along with that, we will also be setting up the lab, guys. You need to have virtual machines, and within the virtual machines, we are going to deploy a Linux machine, and we are going to onboard both Okta and SailPoint across that specific machine. So we are going to download a SailPoint a var file, and we are going to execute that var file in Linux and try to implement to have an hands-on experience. Either we can create an active directory server from any of the cloud platforms and try to ingest that IAM data to SailPoint or Okta, or else we can try to get some sample HR data and try to implement that try to ingest that HR data into Okta or SailPoint. Either ways, we are also going to have a very deep into the hands-on experience where we will be trying to deploy our own lab for both IAM and Okta. So the first thing, maybe I could also explain you what are all the components that you need for your lab. So in case if you can download them, you can download them, or else so I'll also show you the setup of how to download it and how to deploy the lab as well. So let's quickly go, and now this is the way of my teaching, guys. In case you might have seen my YouTube videos before, maybe teaching security operations or cloud security, or maybe CrowdStrike EDR, or maybe policy vulnerability assessment. See, I wanna make sure that my sessions are very interactive and very practical. It's not like I'm gonna show you some presentation and make you see the presentation and understand them. So it doesn't work that way. We are professionals, and we should always ensure that we learn practically. And that is the reason. So I always use our whiteboard. So this is the whiteboard that we are going to use until the end of our course. So whatever the theory that we discuss, we are going to discuss that theory practically across the whiteboard so that we can have a better understanding as an aerial view. Okay, then, so let's get to start ahead. First, I'll give you all the things that is needed for your lab. So, in case if you have an idea about installing them, so I think you can try to install it, or else you do not worry within the third or fourth session. So, we'll try to have 1 or 2 hours separately to install our lab. So, first, let me give you all the prerequisites that you need to make sure that you have your lab, and what you would also be knowing the basic stuff. Whenever we try to learn something edge cutting, right now SailPoint and Okta are the edge cutting IAM solutions. So if we want to learn any cutting edge technologies, you have to definitely understand the basics behind it. So first, within the first few sessions, 1 or 2 sessions, we'll try to understand the very core basics behind IAM. So that's it becomes easy for us to to look into whatever the things that we have technically within both Okta and SailPoint. Whatever the architecture that we're gonna use, whatever the components that we're gonna use, it becomes more easy for you to understand and implement them. Okay, let's take ahead. Okay. So first, let me give you the prerequisites that we need to have our lab. So let's write our day 1 topic, introduction, Okta and SailPoint. There's a lot of SailPoint modules that we will be more looking into identity IQ, which is more on demand courses that we have right now, and there's a lot of opportunities there. And we will also be looking into identity now. So we will also be covering a part of identity view too. So these are the 3 important modules that we have in SailPoint. We will be covering all of these 3 modules in SailPoint, and within Okta, so the more important one is IAM. We'll be looking into the complete IAM of Okta. Okay, let's talk about the lab first. So lab setup is very important, guys. Only if we have the lab, only then we can try to deploy everything that we are learning here. So what do you need first? So you need other virtualization machines first. So you need a Linux machine. You cannot deploy a Linux machine in a Windows machine. So you need to have a virtualization software. So in case if you are using Oracle VirtualBox, or if you have any virtual machines from VMware, you could have it. But I would prefer to have VMware virtualized machine rather than the Oracle machine. So the first prerequisite that we need is our virtual environment. So I'm just giving you an idea, virtual environment. So in order to deploy our virtual environment, the first thing that we need is a VMware virtual machine. VMware, so we can download VMware Workstation player, or we can download VMware Workstation Pro. So I can give you the link for that. Maybe I'll just give you the link for that. So why do we need this? So that we can host the other virtual machines for both SailPoint, and we can also have active directories being deployed across the virtual machine, so that we can use that active directory for both Okta and SailPoint. The next one that we need is Okta is very easy to implement, guys. Now we can just create an account, and we can create a tenant for us, a free tenant, and try to practice across Okta completely across the free tenant. But SailPoint is not that kind. So to get a SailPoint tenant, obviously it is very difficult for us to get a SailPoint tenant for free. So that is the reason. So we are going to set up our own lab. So the next one that you need is a SailPoint IQ, Identity IQ virtual machine. So Identity IQ can also be referred as IIQ within SailPoint. Whenever you try to listen to the word saying SailPoint IIQ, that means it is Identity IQ, one of the very important modules within SailPoint. So the next thing we are going to deploy is a SailPoint Identity IQ virtual machine. So here there are some prerequisites whenever you gonna get to use an identity IKF. So the operating system should be either a CentOS, no Cent Linux OS, or you can also use Rocky Linux. And when you are using a virtual machine, so you need to set some specifics within virtual machine. It should be running for virtual CPUs, and your system should have an 8 GB RAM and at least a 60 GB HDD or SSD. That is, specifically required to run this SailPoint IQ VM. And when it comes to the software stack, so you need to have a Java development kit that we are going to install, JDK. So the versions from 8 to 10, version 8 to 10. And later you need to have an Apache Tomcat to deploy some servers. So you can use the version 8 or 9, which is updated now. A database, so it can be a SQL database or MySQL database or PostgreSQL. Any database that we can deploy, we should have a database too. It can be MySQL or version 8, or it can be PostgreSQL. Okay. And more importantly, if we wanna use SailPoint Identity IKF, we should also be having SailPoint IIKF. So we should be having SailPoint IIKF. So here we will need to download a SailPoint WAR file, and this enterprise software tool and typically requires a customer or partner license. So for training, so we may have access to a sandboxed environment or a specific training tenant just for the sale point. So we should have a customer or partner license, just to make sure that we can practice. We will be using our own sandboxing environment. So we will be having our own sandboxing. So just a minute, guys. Just give me a minute time. 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, coming back to what we need for our lab. So we need a workstation player from VMware, and within that workstation player, so we're gonna deploy our IQ VM from SailPoint. For that, we need to have a kernel of CentOS or Rocky Linux, and that virtual machine should run with 4 virtual CPUs. That means the processor should be 4. So we can also run it with 2 processors, but it might be not that effective because we are going to deploy a lot more things within the lab. And that should have an 8 GB RAM and a 60 GB SSD assigned to it in default. And coming to the software that is required within our IQ virtual machine, we need to have a JDK, so Java Development Kit. This what we can use the version from 8 to 10 or 8 to 11. So we should also able to check if the SailPoint version is compatible with this Java Development Kit that we will be checking when we deploy the lab. And we should have an Apache Tomcat servers. So to deploy Active Directories, or if we want to deploy any other services, we should have Apache Tomcat. A database, it can be any type of database that we can use. I would prefer to use either PostgreSQL or MySQL. And more importantly, to start learning about SailPoint, we need to deploy SailPoint IIQ. So we will need to have an identity iq.wat file, and later whatever the software that we are using, so it basically requires a customer or a partner license. What we are trying to do for our training, so I'm going to set up our own sandboxing environment, or maybe we do have a specific training materials. In some way, we'll try to have our own sandboxing environment where we can try to have hands-on experience about so identity IQ. And coming to the Okta developer tenant. So now, this will install SailPoint, and we will also need to have Okta developer tenant. So the third one, sorry, Okta developer tenant. So to get Okta developer tenant, it's very easy. So we all have to do is, so we should have sign up for a free developer tenant at developer.okta.com. So you can also try to see if you can able to log in. So visit developer.okta.com and sign in to have a free developer tenant. You can sign in to have a free developer tenant. Now, what this Okta provides, this developer tenant provides, it provides a full-featured uh, Okta instance to configure. So we could configure an SSO, we could configure an MFA, so we can do an automate provisioning. We can create users. The users can be assigned to multiple groups. And for single sign-on applications, for single sign-on, we must be provisioning access to different applications. We could able to do all of this within our tenant that we are going to create an account. So we are going to deploy everything within the Okta. And apart from this, there's also another module which we are going to install for SailPoint, and that is the identity source. The SailPoint identity source. So now, how do we need to get the identity source? Maybe we can integrate in Entra ID. We can also integrate any other IAM platforms. If we have LDAP or if you have Active Directories, we can try to pull that data to our SailPoint IIQ or maybe to our Okta, so that we can have try to have hands-on experience. But we need to have some identity source, right? So what is preferred? There are multiple options here. So we can create a Windows server of maybe 2016 or 2019. Maybe we could do it on AWS, or maybe we can do it in Azure. We can create an account, AWS or Azure account. We can try to deploy a Windows server with Active Directory installed on it. The option B will be simple. So either if we can have a simple database with a table for any employee records or even a CSV file acting as a HR source, instead of deploying that virtual machine and getting the data from that virtual machine to Active Directory, so we can directly take some sample data and ingest that sample data to either Okta or SailPoint. Either way, it works for us. So there are two options. The first option is kind of difficult. It's not difficult, but it needs some time for us to for us to set up this. The option A is to have a virtual machine. So you need to have a Windows server, or maybe either 2016 would be preferable with the Active Directory, or you can also install an LDAP to it. The option B is very simple. Instead of having your identity source from here, what you're gonna get to do is, so whatever the data that we have in this, we can able to get that data in a CSV file or maybe a simple database file and get to ingest these data to your SailPoint or Okta. A simple database with the table of employee records. Or maybe not just a table. If you have a .csv file, acting as a source would also be enough. Acting as a source. Okay. So these are all the prerequisites that we need to deploy our lab so that we can have a complete hands-on experience with both Okta and SailPoint. So after we complete one or two sessions, I'm going to spend some time to make you. I know I'll provide you all the links to be downloaded. So once we have downloaded for the other day, so we'll try to deploy the lab and whatever the prerequisite things that we need before we practice, we'll try to ensure. We'll try to configure each of that to our virtualization platform. Okay. So this is your prerequisites. Just go through this, and if you could download, you can try to download, or else I'll try to guide you the process of deploying our lab. Nice. Okay. This is your lab setup. Okay. Okay then. So let's have a quick understanding about what is IAM. IAM. Identity and access management. So this used to be a different team. If you just go back 10 years, this used to be a different team. Now, why is this integrated to security? So, because if you take any cybersecurity breach, there's a lot of cybersecurity breaches happening around. So, North Korean people has recently, compromised the South Korean, website, which was used by the government, and they took all of their sensitive data. And they have done a lot of various techniques involved behind a cyber attack, and somehow they have compromised it. So they have actually done a cross-site request forgery along with the server-side request forgery, and trying to do a cross-site scripting attack across a web application, and by performing a blind base SQL injection, they try to exfiltrate the data. Okay, that's nice. So how did they try to exfiltrate the data? So, as they try to exfiltrate the data, so how does those hackers have access to the data first of all? So they have access to the data by compromising the identity across the infrastructure. So if you take any cybersecurity breach that happens around the world, So some or the other way, so they might have to compromise the identity so that they can able to have access to whatever that they are looking to fulfill their objective. Now that is the core reason so why IAM is involved with security is because we should ensure that the identity and access management should be properly configured, and that is where we do have all the cutting edge tools right now, and it is also acting as a backbone of your IT infrastructure, because this is the one that provides identity and provides access across whatever that you can able to whatever that you can able to see within your infrastructure. You should have some identity and then you should have access to it. So let's understand, so what is this and why is it needed. Second, let me have some water, guys, just a second. Okay, now today's objective, whatever the time that we have remaining, so we are remaining time, so we'll talk about having a quick understanding on the quick fundamentals of what is IAM and why do we need IAM, or why does the organization need IAM. Okay, so I would like to welcome everyone. So as we start our journey today into the backbone of modern IT security, which is called as IAM. As I've told you, so every major data breach that we hear about often has a compromised identity as its core. So the attackers trying to do lateral movement, attackers try to do privilege escalation, or they might try to exfiltrate the data, or they might try to evade the defenses. There are a lot of tactics that the attackers would be using in order to compromise the identity. And now so we do have IAM, so not only to provide identity and access to the authorized people, but we also have to ensure that we are providing right identity and right access to the employees. And it is also helpful, so these platforms will also be very helpful for the organizations to see. So if there are any anomalous behavior, so if there's any unwanted behavior across the infrastructure, trying to access different things that is there within the environment. So let's talk about, so what exactly is authentication and authorization and federation. So if you have to understand IAM, so you have to first understand the very basic terms like what is authentication. So it is generally called as auth n, and authorization auth g. We call this as auth g, and we do have federation. So before we talk about IAM, so you need to learn about these terms. Okay, it's very simple to understand, and I know that as you have previous experience, you should definitely know what is authentication, authorization, and federation. I'll also give you a quick example so to understand these three terms. So what is authentication? So this is the process of verifying who you are. This is the key to the door. For example, let's say that you are traveling somewhere and a traffic police stops you and he asks you for the driver's license. Now, if you provide your driver's license, that would define who you are, right? You're providing your identity to the traffic police so that so you have your driving license and you're driving your car. So that is authentication. Any examples like usernames and passwords. You're trying to give your username and password as an identity to have a authentication. You are using your biometrics to get in inside the door, or maybe to have access something, or you may be using our API token so that we can able to integrate different connectors together across a platform so that they can able to share the resources. So what is authentication? Authentication is very, very simple. So this is the process of verifying who you are. I know this is the key of the door. This is the process of verifying who you are. Okay. This is authentication. And what is authorization? So once you have authentication, now now you have to determine what you are allowed to do. For example, let's say this is your environment. So you are working from home. Okay. As you're working from home, so if you need to have access to your environment, so first you need to authenticate yourself. So you need to verify yourself that you have access to the environment. So now you may try to access it by, you may try to authenticate it by using VPN. Let's say you give your VPN credentials, and then you try to so see the resources that is there across your infrastructure. So now once you have authenticated, once you have verified who you are and have access across the infrastructure. Now not everyone who has access to the infrastructure so has access to everything. So now within this, we need to determine so what you are allowed to do within the infrastructure. These are the set of permissions that an identity can have, and that is given by the authorization. So once you have access, so you have to determine what you are allowed to see. You have to determine what you are allowed to see. Now, for example, let's say I'm a security engineer. I have like 10 years, and you are also a security engineer who has 5 years. Now, they will provide me local admin access, they will provide me server administrator access, they would also provide me whatever the security solutions that we are using. So, they would also provide me all the administrative access across the security platforms. But you may not have it. So you may only have local admin access, or you may only have you may only have access to the platforms that we are using as as not an admin. Maybe you just have access to read it, but not to modify anything, or not to modify any configurations across these tools. So now everyone who has authenticated, they should have some set of permissions that they could able to do. So now you might have heard about zero trust security or role based access controls. All of these comes with authorizations. Now you get to ensure you determine what I can be allowed to see, what are the set of permissions that I have to do within the infrastructure. So this is what is authorization. Now so once, let's say, the security guard gives, for example, let's say you're going to some concert, and before you to be allowed inside, so they might give you a wristband, and the wristband will be on different colors. Let's say you are a VIP user, so your color will be golden wristband. So if you are just a normal user, you may have a blue band. Now so you will have that wristband of golden color, so that you can go into the VIP launch to watch that concert. Now that's authorization. Now you have got some permission so that you could do something across that concert. Now let's say, for example, so based on the access you have, you will have those permissions to do. For example, now if I want to access into some database server, now as if I have any authorization to do that, only then I could able to do that. So now here is where that we determine what an employee are allowed to access, the set of permissions that we are going to provide. So as you know, whenever if you might have experience with access management, you will be creating users, and users will be provisioned to different groups. It can be HR team, or it can be a developer team. You provision them. So once you provision them, so you will provide them the set of access that they can have, and that is authorization. And federation, federation is very simple to understand. Okay, it's very simple. It is the concept of trusting another system to handle authentication. For example, let's say now you're logging into some portal, some application. You're logging in, you're trying to log into some application. Now what you can do is, well, you'll have multiple options. One, you can try to create an account within that application. You can try to register yourself from your email ID and try to create your own authentication, so to directly access that application. Or else what you can also do is, you can also sign in from Google, you can also sign in from Instagram, you can also sign in from other platforms. So when you can able to try to create your own account for that application, why should you also have options like this? Login from Gmail, or login from Google, or maybe login from Facebook, or login from Instagram. Why do you have these options? And that is federation. So the federation is the concept of trusting another system to handle authentication. So why do we need federation within IAM? Is because when we implement single sign on, so now once it is authenticated, once it is authorized to use single sign on, whatever the applications that you are using within single sign on, you should have access to them directly. It should not authenticate you again. Now, how does it doesn't authenticate you again is because we would be implementing federation to these applications from the single sign-on platform. So what it actually does, so it builds the trust to the another system to handle authentication. For example, so they build now login from Google. They trust Google so that they can have authentication to their application. So you're trusting another source to handle your authentication, and that is called as federation. So this is the concept of trusting another service to handle authentication. Okay. Okay. For example, let's say the same example. So you have authorization to enter into the concert hall, so the VIP hall. Now, you will also have access to the launch of that concert, where you can go have some dinner, talk to people, talk to all the VIPs there. So, okay, launch is a different building now. So, you wanted to go to your launch and you have a golden wristband now. So, what you do now, as you enter the launch, you don't have to authenticate yourself again. If you just show them the wristband, so they'll make you let inside you the launch, and whatever the authentication that you have performed before, that establishes the trust, so that you can able to enter into the launch. You don't have to authenticate there or authorize there. So you just show them the wristband, so that the federation is happen, so that you can enter into that launch. Right, log into Google, log in from Facebook buttons, what whenever you go to some applications, you'll be having these options. So these are the federation methods that is being implemented by that specific application. So this is for your very basics or N or G and federation. So before we talk about IAM, so these are the very core principles that you have to know. Okay. Now, can someone explain the differences between authentication and other authorization using your own example? Anyone? You can, there's thousands of examples. If you want to define with your own example, you could also try to do this. And for tomorrow's session, we'll try to understand the IAM ecosystem. So we'll try to differentiate between what is IAM, what is IGA, and PAM. And so as we try to know about these three different models that is being used by security, so we'll also talk about some real world job postings for IAM engineer or SailPoint developer or Okta administrator, so that you can also get to explore your opportunities as you try to learn this course, right? So today, this is all I have. So we've explained about what are all the things that is needed for our lab, and more importantly, before we could talk a lot of about lot many things about IAM stuff, it's very important you to understand about AAF, authentication, authorization, and federation. We've discussed about it for tomorrow, which is going to be our day two, where we'll talk more about the IAM ecosystem, where we'll try to understand what is IAM, what is IGM, what is PAM, and try to ensure. I'm also going to give you the links to download your lab tomorrow, guys. Okay, then. So, any more questions? Any quick
Uh,
questions if you have?
yeah, hi Manoj. This is Krishna Chaitanya here. Good morning. I have
Mhm.
placed one or two queries in that group chat. Would you be able to check and answer that? And also, I would like to add one more point, as you just
Okay.
mentioned, with regards to the IGA versus IAM versus PAM. I just would like to know what would be the, I mean, concept behind the governance. What actually, as we know that before we head into IAM or PAM, I mean, it is must and should that any organization requires uh, a governance in place. So, what are all that it really considers to have the governance? Would that be aligned to the security strategy or like something, or how exactly we look up to that? Mind if you can help to share some limelight on these three aspects. The first two questions are already placed in the group chat, and the third one is something that I've just reiterated just now.
Okay. See, so anyway, we are going to talk about it tomorrow, just to give you an idea. So, governance is the brains of the operation. So, for example, let's say you have access, you have some permissions. Now, is that access appropriate? Now, there's a lot of security auditing that happens within the organizations based on the business that they do. Now, when we provide some identity, we always have to check the policies, including, for example, now if I'm providing access to someone as a server administrator, is that the access appropriate? Now, should he have access to this? Or can we prove it to an auditor that he should have access because he's trying to perform these things? So, whenever we do create some identity or access to someone, it's very important to understand the brains of that operations, and this answers that question. So, whatever that we try to assign any identity, your governance answers that question. Who should have access to what? So, is this access appropriate, or can we prove it to an auditor? So, this is one of the sale points core function. And we will also cover some part of IGA within it, but we will not be looking into the entire policies and controls based on each framework. But whatever the general ones that we have, so we'll be covering that within IGA. And you might have probably know what is IAM. So it completely focuses on day-to-day access controls. So here within our codes, Okta primary player is IAM, whereas the sale point major job is to ensure so the brains of the operations by implementing governance and administration. So the sale point will be the IGA, and we will also be having PAM. So here PAM is used for privileged access management. So now you might be, some of you might be having differences between, what is IAM and PAM. So this will monitor and provide access across all the identities. So it can be a read access, it can be a write access, it can be an admin access. So IAM will take care of the entire users. It can be a service user, it can be a real employee user. So identity and access management will take care, provisioning access to each and every identity, or maybe trying to create each and every identity. Whereas PAM only deals with the privileged access controls. That means it is one of the very most powerful tools, which has access to monitor the super users. Let's say if you are using Linux machine, so you would use sudo to run some commands that is super user do. So PAM will only have, it is a specialized tool for managing and monitoring. So our most powerful admin users like super users or administrator accounts, so that it provides more security across that one. Because when if they are trying to exfiltrate the data, obviously they should have admin access. So PAM is the tool that monitors the privileged access management. Just to make you understand here, Chaitanya, so in this course, we will concentrate more of IAM through Okta, implementing SSO, implementing multi-factor authentication, provisioning, so automation, automatic provisioning. So we will be including all of this IAM stuff, both in
Mhm.
Okta and SailPoint.
Okay.
And coming to the governance, so this course is designed to just learn IAM. But just to ensure, we should also know some sort of IGA too.
Correct.
So
Correct.
we will also be implementing IGA from the sale point, but
Got it.
not completely. But we will
Hmm.
be covering a bit of it, the very widely used policies across the IAM.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, then that is all
Mind
I
if we
have.
can also take a look at my questions, or also you would, should I read those along?
Okay,
Uh,
just let
Okay,
me just.
I'll just make it easy for you. So my question is that, like, as we know, Manoj, for us to integrate any application to the concerned MFA or SSO level, or there could be a reason or necessity for us to integrate that to the sale point itself, or like Okta itself, whether if it is considered for MFA or SSO or some other reason, there would be a customized connectors which are supposed to be created apart from the default connectors whichever are available. Apart from that, if there are any legacy applications, there could be a chance that we may have to create a customized connectors. Please correct me if
Mhm.
I'm wrong. And
Yes.
and for that, what level of coding is required? That's the my one of my first question.
Okay. The level of coding that you require is you should have some knowledge about running commands in terminal. So you
Okay,
should definitely have some level of experience working with Linux. So do
okay,
not worry. Maybe I can try to show you on how
mm-hmm.
start using Linux machines and try to use your terminal.
Okay,
And once you know how to use Linux, so to provision different applications or to automate different things, you might be using some scripts, automated scripts, and these automated scripts will already be inbuilt by your organization. For example, now if you're in a provision, all the new users joined in your company.
correct.
So instead of doing it, on
Manual.
your user interface one by one, so
Mm-hmm.
you could deploy a script to provision an identity for these many users and provide access to them to these many applications. You could do all of that by running a script, and this script you're not the one to write it down. So this script is already inbuilt with your organization. You just get to customize what the employee names or the groups or the users, and you just try
Attributes.
to the
Got it.
attributes. You try to customize the attributes and deploy it.
Mm-hmm.
And apart from that, sometimes you get to troubleshoot whatever the components that you're using. So for troubleshooting, so there is a separate documentation within SailPoint, so
Okay,
you can use that documentation to learn more of its stuff.
got it.
And there are different types of troubleshooting. It's not just every time you get to see only one error. So very frequently
Makes
there are
sense.
many type of error codes. So based on these error codes,
Correct.
you have troubleshooting steps. So you get to learn those troubleshooting. I'm gonna show you some of them, but there'll be a lot of errors at it based on the error code. So there'll be a lot of troubleshooting steps that you get to take care. And the sale point has a very detailed documentation on it. So we'll try to look into that as well.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Also, a continuation to that, Manoj, I only have one more question. Sorry, I'm not blocking any other thing as well. I just would like to know, as we know nowadays, like considering the ITSM tool like ServiceNow, uh, where it has the chance to perform some automation towards any of the tool it is integrated. So while we take the IAM considering the SailPoint or Okta, uh, what would be the kind of automation or like coding level it is expected for us to consider? For example, if I have to say, in in the previous history or so, I did even work on the few of the old IAM tool like Novel or so. But I mean, it used to be very manual to say. I used to receive a
Mhm.
ticket and I have to consider the necessary attributes, fetching it from the workday or like kind of HR portal. So, and I may have to create the user ID integrating all this information. So, uh, point point here, the question here is that while we integrate this to the sale point, the user, whoever is being requested, the necessary um, details would be automatically fetched, and uh, the initiation should be taken up from the ITSM tool, and that can be integrated to the SailPoint or Okta. Can that be also be considered? And what would be the kind of coding again it might be required for us to perform that, so that the automation can take place and the user will be created without any human intervention?
Okay, nice question, Chaitanya. So this is where our governance comes to place.
Okay,
So there are some default policies that are assigned to an identity before we provision it and connect to it to our authorization platform. So if I would like to talk about an example, let's say a service now ITSM. So there's a lot many things that happens in service now. Apart from ticketing, there's a lot of things that the service the nav team will be taking care on it. So there'll be inventory management there, so there's CMDB management there. Service now has a lot of services. So let's say for example now, okay, we're all there on this course. So let's say we wanted to create an access to ServiceNow, and we just have deployed ServiceNow to our infrastructure. So now initially we may need to have some script that also provides some governance controls on what level of access that our employees should have, or whatever the new access that I'm providing to ServiceNow. So in order to federate this access, we need to have some script that lets you understand what level of permissions that the service now should have. Apart from that, what you can also do is there'll be connectors. You can use a SailPoint API connector to integrate with ServiceNow. So what happens is SailPoint also has the ability to check the logs of whatever that an user is trying to do within that specific application. For example, let's say now I have reader access to some SailPoint project, sorry, some ServiceNow project, so where there are a lot of confidential reports there. Now, if I try to have, if I try to have access to that, so SailPoint will also analyze those log details of so and so user is trying to have access to it. So this way, now as there are some governance policies that is already set up with your SailPoint, and if those policies are breached, so your SailPoint can also alert you saying, okay, this policy have been has not been following by so and so user having access to this specific platform. So whenever the answer to your question is, so whenever we try to deploy any application to your SailPoint, it is very important to also provide some security policies to it, and also enable security monitoring so that if any of these policies will be breached, so your SailPoint would also provide you an alert related to it. So this way we can connect different integrators and ensure that we have proper security policies and controls implemented for that specific connector, and if there's any anomalous activities across the connector, so you would also get to know about it. And coming to scripting, so you may not need much of scripting. So whatever the scripting that you need, so it is just the script that your organization would have. So you just have to change the attributes and you just provision it. That's going to be as simple as it. We have a lot of cutting edge tools now. So no, so before we used to do everything manually. These days
correct,
even the organizations, even if they have a lot of automated tools, they are still doing it manually because they don't know how to automate things.
correct,
So there's a lot many options that we have within. So it's all about understanding. See, so every tool that you take, there are thousand many things to learn about it. So within SailPoint Identity IQ, there's a lot of things to learn about. If we want to cover all of that, it may even take 6 months to just learn SailPoint. Now, what this course is designed for? This course is designed for to have hands-on experience with the major things that the organization is taking care according to Okta SailPoint that we will be covering. Okay,
Got
that
it.
answers your question,
Yeah,
Chaitanya.
yeah, indeed. Yep. Thanks, thanks, Manoj. Yeah, thanks for your
Sure.
patience in answering my questions.
No, no problem. I'm here to do that.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, then. So I'm very glad to meet all of you. And so I've been teaching SailPoint and Okta before 6 months back. And there's not much people asking about this course before now, as it is becoming the backbone of IT. So every small organization is also implementing IAM, and one of the most vendors, most very widely used vendors across this platform is Okta and SailPoint. So that is the reason we've merged both of these tools together, so that we can also able to understand how they try to interact together and try to ensure the security is provided properly, and also managing the governance at the same time, managing the access controls of different objects. Okay, then, so as we move on, so this course is try to make you learn as easier as possible. So you can expect a lot many things. As we move tomorrow, we'll try to talk about the differences between IAM, so IGM, and also PAM, and moreover, whatever the curriculum we have. So we'll try to understand the curriculum so that you'll try to know what are all the things that you're trying to learn on this course. Right. So thanks for your time. I really appreciate your time. So we may have a holiday tomorrow because we have a festival. So we may have a holiday in case if I'm free. So I'll be taking this session, or else we can take a holiday and we can meet on Wednesday. Meanwhile, please share your email ID across the group so that you can able to access the recordings of every session that we are going to take. So if even if you miss, whenever you have time, so you can access those recordings. Please send over your email across the WhatsApp group that we have. So thanks for your time, guys. We'll meet you guys for the next session. Until then, have a great time. Thank you so much, and have a happy festival, guys. Thank you. Bye
Yep.
bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.